we're all here for our last session. So I'm hoping to wrap up all the remaining points for this topic. So let's hope we can do it. I'm thinking I may run a little over, but I'll try not to do that. So let's get started by focusing on our breath. So the inhalation, the exhalation. And trying to not get distracted. Any thoughts come up, we just let them go. We don't get involved with the story. Just like clouds in the sky. Don't push them away either. Because if we don't get involved with them, if we just observe them, they will go away on their own. They really have no staying power beyond the power that we give them. And so now, with a mind that is more tranquil, that has been pacified to some extent, let's try to cultivate a positive motivation for engaging in this activity. Because, as we know, it's the motivation that determines what kind of result we're going to get. And so, understanding impermanence and death gives us a completely different perspective on our life. It helps us to focus on that which is important. It helps us reduce our attachment, and it gives a lot of impulse to our practice. It sort of propels our practice. And as we understand our own situation in terms of impermanence, we also understand others' situation. We understand how much suffering not understanding impermanence brings to every sentient being. We're not the only ones who suffer as a result of not really understanding the impermanent nature of ourselves and everything around us. And so delving deeper into this topic, will bring us some peace of mind, some clarity. Hopefully help us respond to the transitory nature of reality, of our reality, with compassion, with wisdom, with patience. Not just so that we can have more happiness in our lives, but so that we can help others also. So we can bring them hopefully in the future to the same understanding, and we can help them attain some peace of mind, some respite from suffering. And eventually, as we progress in the path and become fully awakened, then we can guide them to that state as well. So I'm going to give you a few moments of silence so that you can cultivate this motivation in your heart. Okay. So last time we reviewed a little bit the disadvantages of not remembering impermanence and death. So today we're going to start with what are the advantages of remembering impermanence and death. And I mentioned some of them uh, in the motivation. So let's kind of go through them a little bit more slowly. Um, yeah. Um, I was just going to say that I may go a little faster today just because I have a lot of material to cover. And so when I said slowly, it just immediately caused some dissonance in my mind because I've been thinking I have to go fast. So all of a sudden I'm thinking, okay, how do I go slow and fast at the same time? Okay, so it's really funny. Okay. So the first advantage of remembering impermanence and death is that it really helps us make our life meaningful, right? Because knowing that we can die at any time, really taking the veil of our eyes and really looking square on our at the uncertainty of our situation. And then, if we look, geez, I could go at any moment. There is nothing that tells me I will live one more day, one more hour, one more minute. So then it helps us really think, okay, what's important? What's really essential in my life? It kind of helps us differentiate between those actions and activities that are worthwhile and those that are not. Yes. And though in the beginning we may have a lot of resistance, the more that we meditate, the more that we reflect on this, that resistance is going to be sort of giving way. Yeah. Um, so then as we really begin to comprehend and internalize this idea, um, I just I bet you're going to feel a lot less amenable to spending or investing your time in meaningless pursuits, right? So um, I am betting that most, if not all of us, want to spend whatever time we have left, giving love to others, being gentle and compassionate, spreading goodwill and not hate, repairing whatever damaged we might have caused in our ignorance, in our confusion, yes. And treating others with patience and respect. I bet that's what we might want to do once we really get this picture clear, right? So, and then also getting in touch with our inner being, looking at our inner life and trying to make that a focus on that more prominent in our life. So this meditation helps us get there. Yeah, helps us really make that turn in terms of what we do and how we look at our activities, at our life, and what's important. Okay. So continuing on in terms of the advantages, yeah, it this remembering uh impermanence and death, it's very powerful in terms of helping us create or get to this change in perspective. Yeah. Um, since the Buddha's time, yeah, meditators who really wanted to get a handle on this, they would meditate in those charnel grounds where they would see bones and ashes and corpses, in order to just be very present with that reality. Yes. Even now in India, right? And I must clarify, I have never witnessed this, so I have yet to take this step myself, even though I have been to India, but I haven't been to this particular place that I'm going to mention. But yeah, by the Ganges River, there are crematoriums, and death in India is a much more accepted and um, open event. And so there are corpses there from, again, not from personal experience, but from what I hear, and people get to see them, and they're holding prayers, and then they take them to be cremated. So it's very visible. It's a very visible, open situation. And then we come here, we come to the West, and it's kind of sort of sanitized. It's kind of like hidden away, pushed back. Yes. We don't have uh, as an immediate relation to it as they do, for example, in India. So it's definitely harder for us to get that immediate experience. Even if we go to a viewing, for example, yeah, that the corpse is still in a coffin, and when you go to see them, they could have makeup on, and their face just looks like, they have rosy cheeks and sometimes lipstick, and all nicely arranged, and it looks like they were just sleeping. So we kind of just put a brush of I would say, beauty on death, that if we were to look at it from a different perspective, it just wouldn't be there. Yeah. So it's a very different relationship, and we might have to just meditate on it more clearly to sort of really discern what the real situation is. Yeah, what a real corpse looks like. I remember that when I think it was in high school. Yes, in high school, we had a field trip to a university where they were doing research on corpses. And there were these corpses floating in tanks of formaldehyde. And it was quite a sight. It was like, wow, they don't look anything like they look when they're in the coffin for viewing. Yeah, I still can see and remember that scene of these huge tanks of formaldehyde and the corpses floating there. It was quite impactful. So this meditation also helps us get rid of that attachment and aversion. Yeah. Attachment and aversion, and specifically, attachment to this body. We just, that we feel so connected to. Like, who am I without this body? It also keeps our practice going. When we do this meditation consistently, it kind of spurs our practice. It supports our practice. It keeps us going. Yeah. And it's a good a good antidote for laziness. If we started getting late, getting lazy, getting complacent, then getting in touch with the fact that, no, I could die tomorrow. I could die tonight. I may not wake up. So it really gives us that impetus to meditate, to continue with our practice. And lastly, it also inspires us to not give up until we attain Buddhahood. Because we're here today. What is the one thing that can spare us from the ongoing endless death that we have to go through? The only thing that can help us from that is attaining Buddhahood. Yeah? Otherwise is death after death, after death, after death, like all the innumerable deaths that we've had already. Yeah. So it really provides all that fuel for practice. And what is a good way, an excellent way, a highly recommended way from our teachers to prepare for death? So it's practicing the 5 forces. So there are 5 forces that we can practice in order to be prepared for death, in order to have a positive death experience, not just a positive death experience, but one that can actually help us attain fortunate rebirth. So those are 5 forces. They are listed on your handout, but I wanted to add just a little bit more. The handout has touched upon what His Holiness is recommending in terms of the 5 forces. So I'll mention a little bit about that, but I'm also going to mention what other teachers, masters have said about it, just a little bit, to kind of expand some, bringing a couple of different points of views. So the first force is the force of familiarity. Yeah. So familiarity helps us because when we engage in spiritual practice daily, right, our mind is getting used to that. Yeah. If we're starting to meditate on compassion, refuge, and bodhicitta, what happens? Our mind becomes very familiar with these mental states. So, and if our mind is very familiar with this mental state, if our mind is very familiar with our regular practice, then it's going to be easier for us to remember that when we are undergoing our death process. Yeah. If we have never generated compassion before, there is no way we're going to be able to generate compassion when we're dying. The more likely scenario is that we're going to be flooded with attachment, and we don't want that. Okay, so if we want compassion to come up as we're dying, we have to start developing compassion, doing the meditations that help us develop compassion. Now, if we want bodhicitta, and bodhicitta will be the best thing that we want to come up when we're dying. But if we want bodhicitta to come up when we're dying, we have to practice generating bodhicitta now. Otherwise, it's never going to happen. We're kind of sort of wishing something, but without having created the causes for that. Okay. So Pabonka Rinpoche, who has written this wonderful book, The Liberation in the Palm of Your Hands. I really recommend you to read that book. So he explains that, by meditating regularly and continuously, on the mind of enlightenment, bodhicitta, during our life, so that strength of habit that we have built will enable us to generate something like that mind when we're about to die. It really will be more likely to manifest when we're dying, simply because we've done it so many times. And so Pavanka Rinpoche says there is no greater practice. There is no better spiritual practice that you can do when you're dying and practice generating bodhicitta. You know? So then we have to understand, okay, what are the methods for generating bodhicitta? You don't have to memorize them. We have to do it repeatedly. Yeah, so that's the force of familiarity. Then comes the force of directing the future. And this is about generating strong aspiration to continue with our practice in this life, so that nothing can destroy our practice in this life. Nothing can take us away from our practice in this life. And then also generating the aspiration to continue our practice during the intermediate state after death, and then in the following and all future lives. His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and this is a quote that you have in your handout. I'm going to read. It says, he encourages us to think that, for example, I will maintain my practice in this life, the intermediate state, and future lives until I attain Buddhahood. So that's what His Holiness is advising us to do. So it's easy to include this type of aspiration when we're doing our prayers. For example, before we go to bed, if we're dedicating our prayer, our merit that we've accumulated during that day, and we just say, okay, it's dedicated for this. May I be able to maintain my practice no matter what in this life, in the bardo, and in all future lifetimes until I attain Buddhahood. So that is the force of directing the future, of really setting a course for the mind. Yeah, setting the mind on that goal, and every day feeding that guidance, that direction. And then comes the force of the white seed. Yes. So here, this is all about generating as much virtue, as much positive karma, as much virtuous karma as we can to propel our practice. Nam Kapel, who wrote this wonderful text, which I also recommend, is called Mind Training Like the Rays of the Sun. In the text, he says that we need to preserve all of the merits that we've generated in our practice, and all the insights, and especially the merits that we're generating from generosity, ethical conduct, and meditation. Yeah. So we have to make sure that we preserve them. No, that we engage in virtuous action, and then we preserve that merit through dedicating that merit and trying not to burn it with anger. Yes. And at the same time, trying to reduce the negativities that we're engaging in. Which then brings us to the next force, the force of eradication. And Nam Kapil, the same master that I quoted, he said, we should try to give up disturbing emotions or afflictions, including the view of an inherently existent I or self, as well as the self-centered attitude. We need to try to eradicate that, because these things cause us to neglect others, to not work for their benefit, to harm them. Yes. And so we want to be able to avoid that as much as possible. Pabonka Rinpoche, when he talks about this force, the force of eradication, he says, he suggests that he advises us that in order to remove obstacles at the time of death, we should really do confession and regret our misdeeds, our mistakes, and do the best to resolve them, before we get to our death time, and try not to repeat them again. Yeah. And then His Holiness recommends that we strive, that we practice to see all phenomena such as birth, death, the intermediate state, as existing only dependently, as not having any little bit of inherent existence, not even the slightest. Yeah. And so he also recommends that we think about that. We think that all of the suffering that we are experiencing in cyclic existence is due to our self-cherishing. Yeah? And that self-cherishing comes from conceiving that other beings and ourselves exist inherently. Yeah. So that's the force of eradication. And then the force of wishing, which is also called sometimes the force of prayer. The force of prayer. And in mind training, the text titled Mind Training Like the Rays of the Sun, Nyam Kapel explains that we should make prayers. That all sentient beings and ourselves may generate bodhicitta, the awakening mind. And that those that have generated it, that they don't lose it. Yeah. And to pray also that we may never be separated from the awakening mind, that all sentient beings never be separated from the awakening mind under any situation. And that all of us, all sentient beings, be able to abandon this self-cherishing. And that's how important these mental states are, in terms of cultivating bodhicitta and at the same time eliminating self-cherishing. So they have a very potent influence in our spiritual development, the cultivation of one and the abandoning of the other. And also, His Holiness advises that repeatedly we should wish for attaining a body in the future that supports our practice. Yeah? And even beyond that, to also be able to meet excellent spiritual guides so that we're not separated from practice. So we are not separated from perfectly qualified spiritual teachers. Okay, so those are the 5 forces. I try to give you some different perspectives from different masters on those 5 forces. The idea is to start practicing them now so that they can be really, really strong in our mind for the time of our death. And so that brings us to, okay, how do we die? And how are we reborn? Now we're entering into the last leg, the really last leg of this topic. Okay, so in order to understand this, we have to review something about karma. Yeah. And you have a whole module on karma. So I'm just gonna do like a quick brush on just a couple of karma related things that impact this topic, right? Of impermanence and death. So there there are four karmic results. So our actions, our volitional actions, yeah, um, can have four karmic results. So there is the throwing karma, and there is completing karma. And completing karma is divided into two: the results that are similar to the cause and the environmental result. And it just so happens that the result that is similar to the cause also have two variations. The result that's similar to the cause in terms of experience, and then the result similar to the cause in terms of habit. Okay. So I'm going to explain those kind of briefly, because you'll have the module on karma that really goes more deeply into this. So throwing karma is that which is going to propel our consciousness into a new rebirth. Yeah. So as we are experiencing death, what happens is that, and I touched upon this in one of our previous sessions, but as we're experiencing death, yeah, we get the sensation, we get the perception that we're going out of existence and we're separating from this body, and all of our existence up to the point is really centered and focused on this body. There is there is there is this amazingly strong attachment to the body that comes up when we perceive that, geez, we're really coming face to face with non-existence. Yeah? And so at that time, there's a lot of craving and grasping, which are afflicted mental states that arise. Yeah, that arise. And so our mind is flooded with craving and grasping and wanting to hold on to this body, a body, some type of existence. Yeah. And so that mental environment at that moment becomes a very conducive environment for throwing karma to manifest. Yeah, at that time. And because craving and grasping are afflicted mental state, they are very likely to be a cooperative condition for a negative throwing karma to manifest, which then will throw us into an unfortunate rebirth. And so once that throwing karma has manifested and has propelled us into the next life, then in that next life, the completing karmas will manifest to make up our experiences in that life. Okay? So then the karma similar to the cause, which is a completing karma, and this one would be, we're going to start talking about this one, the karmas similar to the cause in terms of experience. Yeah. And so that's the one where we will experience what we have done. Yeah. So, for example, if we've killed or harmed others, we will be killed or harmed in return. Also, if we have engaged in killing, our lifespan will be shorter. Yes. If we've stolen, if we've taken things from others without their permission, what happens? Our possessions will be also taken from us. They will be stolen from us. Or we will simply lose them, or they will get damaged. Everything that we own might get destroyed, taken away. We might let somebody borrow an item and they'll never return it. Those things. If that has happened to you in this life, now you know, oh, okay, that's the result of taking things without the owner's permission. But it is said that in terms of the karma similar to the cause, the most serious one is the result similar to the cause in terms of the habitual tendency. So the habitual tendency to keep engaging in the same negative action. That is really the worst, because it makes us create more and more and more of the same negativity, Yeah. So then we get the impulse to continue to do things. For example, if we were very accustomed to lying in past lives, we'll bring that habit right into this life, and then we'll continue to lie. Yeah. Or if we are so used to taking life from previous lifetimes, then in this life we also have the propensity to take life, to fish, to hunt, to do things that result in others, losing their life. So that is really the most serious one, because it just helps us continuously create negativity. Now, in terms of the environmental result, so the environmental result is the karma that determines where we are born, determines the society in which we're born, the country in which we're born, the geography of the place where we are born. So one action can have all of these results. Yeah. So now we understand that when we are in the process of dying, the mental environment that we have determines where we're going to go, determines whether or not a positive karma may manifest that will propel us to a fortunate rebirth. Because if instead of grasping and craving attachment to this life, to this body, instead of that, if we can have compassion come up, if we can have refuge come up, if we can have bodhicitta come up somehow, then they will create the environment propitious for a positive karma to ripen. That's why it's so important to be able to help people who are dying to have a positive mental state at that time as possible, because that will sort of help determine where they're going to go next. Okay, so now let's take a look at the causes of death. Yeah. And in terms of the Buddhist context, yeah, we can die as a result of having used up our lifespan. So this throwing karma has a lifespan with it. Yeah, as we come into this life with a throwing karma of a certain lifespan. And so when that lifespan is over, we die. Yeah. So we bring that karmic lifespan into the life that we have as a result of the previous karma that we have created. Yeah. So when that lifespan's done, we die. Or we can die from exhausting our merit. Because we need merit in order to obtain the necessities of life. Yeah. So we run out of merit and we cannot get food. If we run out of merit and we cannot get medicine, if we run out of merit and we cannot get shelter. So these are, excuse me. So these are causes of death. And there is also death from not avoiding danger. In terms of the Buddhist context, these are the causes of death. Okay. In addition to, of course, we die because we're born. So at the time of death, as I was explaining earlier, we can have either a virtuous mind, a non-virtuous mind, or a neutral mind. Yeah? We die with a virtuous mind, as I was saying earlier, when we can remember compassion, when we can bring a mind of loving kindness, when we can bring up a mind of refuge, yeah, mind of renunciation. And so any of those mental states will help us die with a virtuous mind, which then will give us the ability to be reborn in a fortunate rebirth. Yeah. Um, and so in your handout, there is a quote from Lama Tsongkhapa, where he says that when we die with a virtuous mind, it's like going from a dark place into a place of light, into a pleasant space. Yeah. So we die comfortably. Fear and suffering do not arise. Yeah. And that final, he says that final agony of death is minimal when we die with a virtuous mind. Now, when we die with a non-virtuous mind, yeah, and here is when where people around us can help us or not. Yes. If at the time of our death, people around us, our relatives, etc., are crying right next to us, holding on to us, telling us, please don't go, please stay, we need you. Of course, they do that out of love, or they think they're doing that out of love. Yeah, so they may not perceive that as particularly damaging to the person who's dying, but actually it is damaging to the person who's dying, because these causes the person who's dying to also generate attachment and to not want to go and to want to stay and to want to hold on to the body and hold on to these people. Yeah. And that attachment is an afflicted mind. Yeah. And so it creates a non-virtuous state of mind at the time of death. Yeah. Or another scenario is, people, you're dying and people are telling you, well, remember you were going to give me this. Hey, remember can I have that? Can I have, can I have the car? Can I have the, you know, and so then that creates in your mind an attachment to your possessions. Oh, how am I going to leave my car? How am I going to leave my home? Who am I going to leave it to? I didn't do that. I didn't do my will. So it just brings up all kinds of attachment and and worry and preoccupation, which are it completely messes up the mental state of the person who's dying. And so creates non-virtuous mental state. Yeah. So it is Lama Tsongkhapa, I believe, mentions that people who die with a non-virtuous mental state really it's like passing from light into dark. And then they have nightmare visions. Yeah? From your handout, he says that when those who are cultivating that those who are cultivating non-virtue, for those beings, consciousness is going to leave the body from the lower parts. Yeah. So comes from the lower parts to the heart and then leaves the body. And someone who practices virtue then actually should leave the body from the upper part. But I think I wrote this down. I tried to write the quote, but I must have missed it because it makes no sense the way that I have it written. And I must have made a mistake when I wrote it down in my notes. On my notes. Okay. Okay. Whatever is saying on your handout, listen to that and don't listen to what I just said because I think I messed it up when I wrote it. But it's on your handout. It's a quote from Lama Tsongkhapa. I don't know how I messed it up, but I did. So there you have it. Just read what's on there. Okay. So then, okay, so we've died. We've died whether we did that with a virtuous mind or a non-virtuous mind or a neutral mind. We now died. And what happens after we die? We go into what is called the intermediate state or the bardo. So the being now, the intermediate state, has no connection with their previous life. No connection. They've now taken a subtle body and a mind that is similar to the one they will have in the next rebirth. Yeah. So they are now in that subtle body with the body and the mind similar to the one they will have in the next rebirth. Yes. And so that being in that intermediate state has a total of 49 days to obtain a new rebirth. So in reality, though, is 7 cycles of 7 days. So the being died in the previous life, enter the intermediate state, and that's the first day. And in a total of 7 days in that subtle body, with that mind of their next rebirth, and they live 7 days. So they have 7 days to find a new incarnation. Yes. But if they don't, they die. That body, they die again. And then they take a similar body for the next 7 days. And so they have another 7 days. They are reborn in the bardo. They have another 7 days to find a suitable, according to their karma, reincarnation. And if they don't, again, they die and they're reborn again in the bardo, etc. And they repeat this cycle 7 times. At the 49th day, they really need to get going. So they really need to find something by then. Yeah. So beings in the bardo mm, have a body that it's they can walk through material things. They're not stopped by a wall, then they're not stopped by anything. They can, they have this ability to go through things. If they think of a place, they go there more instantaneously. Yeah. They can fly. Yeah, so they have a number of mm, powers, so to speak. Yes. Those are karmically given, that they are not developed through their spiritual practice, but they're just part of karma. Um, and but they can also they can have very frightful experiences. They can also experience suffering and confusion, and yeah, and end up in some very frightening places. So they can have all these karmic appearances that are frightening, depending upon their karma, as they're in this bardo situation. So okay, so that's the bardo. Now, we are getting close to the finish. Our last topic is the actual dissolutions that take place as we're dying. This is the very last uh, of what we're going to talk about in this class. So there are during the death process, yeah, there are 25 gross objects that are going to be dissolving, and that means basically they are losing power, they're weakening. Yes, and as they weaken and become weaker and weaker, then the next strongest one becomes more predominant. So they are all sort of dissolving. And as they dissolve, they're losing the ability to support consciousness. They're no longer able to support consciousness. And so when all this process is finished and none of these can support consciousness, then the consciousness leaves. Yeah. And so um so what are these 25 objects that are dissolving? Yeah. So it's the five aggregates: form, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness. They're all dissolving. Yeah. The five basic wisdoms. This is all listed in your handout. The five basic wisdoms. What are they? Uh, you can look them up. But they're called the basic mirror-like wisdom, the basic wisdom of equality, the basic wisdom of analysis, the basic wisdom of achieving activities, and the basic wisdom of the nature of phenomena. The four elements are dissolving: earth, water, fire, and wind. The six sources, which are the senses: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and the mental sense. And the five objects, which are color, shape, sounds, odors, taste, and touches. Okay. So I'm running out of time, so now I'm really flying with this. Luckily, you have the handout. I keep on reminding you have the handout. So that makes me feel better. So that makes me feel better. Okay, so let's go through the dissolution process, because at the end, I hope we have time to do meditation on this dissolution process. So the first to dissolve, so let's say we're in our deathbed. We're in our deathbed, and there is nothing that can prevent us from dying at that moment. So we're really, really dying. Yeah, so then the first thing that's going to dissolve at that time is the earth element. What's the earth element? It's what gives solidity to the body, the bones, yeah, the skin, the hair, the nails, for example. Okay, so that everything that has solidity is considered the earth element. And so when that earth element is dissolving, then there is a vision in the mind, like a mirage. It's like a mirage. Like, you're driving in your hot summer day and you're in a long road ahead and you can see the mirage in front of you. So that type of a mirage. And so the earth element within the body can no longer support consciousness. And there is a sensation of heaviness in the body. It's becoming so heavy and you're like falling. Yeah. So the body becomes smaller and there's weight loss and our limbs weaken. Yeah, the legs, the arms just become really weak. The eyesight becomes clouded and clear, and it's difficult to open and close the eyes. And the skin loses its natural shine. That's kind of like the first stage. So as the earth element dissolves, then the water element starts its dissolution process. And as it begins to dissolve, then the mind experiences a vision of smoke, like smoke rising. And so what are some examples of the water element in our body? The saliva, the urine, the blood, all those fluids. Yeah? And so there's a feeling of dryness. The feeling of dryness as this is all dissolving. Yeah. And then the body begins to lose its ability to differentiate between pleasure and pain or a neutral sensation. Yeah. We cannot hear external or internal sound. So we begin to lose the hearing capacity, the hearing function. Then the fire element begins to dissolve. After the water element dissolves, then the fire element begins to dissolve. And the fire element is what gives the body heat. Yeah, it's this energy that gives heat to the body. And we experience a vision of sparks flying or fireflies, you know. And so the fire element in the body is losing its ability to support consciousness. And the body gets cold, experience cold. Then the body also loses the ability to digest food, solids or liquids, and cannot perceive those around or discern who they are. We don't remember names of the people who were there. We're just having a hard time really focusing on what is happening. Our inhalation weakens and the exhalation becomes long and pronounced. And then cannot distinguish colors. So you can see how even with this description, we start getting that feeling, that sense that things are shutting down. Yeah, our body is shutting down, as well as our consciousnesses, our gross consciousnesses are shutting down. And that's exactly what it feels like, what the experience sort of alludes to. And then comes, after the fire, comes the dissolution of the wind element. And we have a vision of a flame that is weakening, that is about to go out. And so there's an indication that the wind element in the body no longer can support consciousness. And what is this wind element? It's the energy, the circulation, the energy that facilitates all these things that are circulating in the body, like swallowing, like breathing. Okay, so it's at this point when the heart slows, and we start to lose our breath, stops breathing. The physical movement ceases. The being is no longer conscious of the external world. It is said that the base of the tongue turns blue. And it's at this moment when the wind element dissolves completely that we reach what is called medical death, because there's no breathing, there's no heartbeat, and there's no brain activity. So this is the point of medical death. But the consciousness is still in the body. The consciousness is still in the body. It has not completed its process yet. Okay. So I'm going to paraphrase from a teaching by Lati Rinpoche. And so he talks about how at this point then the coarser minds begin to dissolve. So that's after we've been declared medically dead. Okay. So then after that, the coarser minds begin to dissolve and they start giving way to more subtle minds. Yeah. So as conceptuality, as our conceptual minds dissolve, then the mind experiences a vision of a white appearance. That is a subtler mind. Yes, it's a subtler mind to which only a vacuity filled with white appears. And that mind is free from the coarse conceptuality. But it's said to be still a dualistic mind. Okay. Now that mind that is experiencing that white appearance then dissolves and gives way to a more subtle mind, which is called the mind of red increase. When that mind of red increase dissolves, then it gives way to a mind that is still subtler and experiences a black vision. Yeah. And it's accompanied by an experience similar to fainting or swooning. Yes. And then after that, we finally get to the most subtle level of mind, which is the fundamental mind of clear light. It's the most subtle. And it's at this point when that fundamental mind of clear light manifests that then the consciousness leaves the body. So you can see that this happens way after we've already been declared dead. And so then the consciousness leaves, and then it goes to the bardo, so that gives rise to the bardo being. Yes. And then I already explained how the bardo goes, and then that consciousness then will find a place to reincarnate. Yeah. it will find its place, karmically determined. And then when that bardo being is ready to reincarnate, then this process of dissolution happens in the reverse order. So now the mind started to reestablish itself in the mind of the reincarnation. Whatever that being is going to be like, then that mind will then be reestablishing itself. How? So it goes from the clear light in reverse order. Clear light to the my vision of black appearance, the red increase, then to the white appearance, then it goes the weak flame, fire, spark, smoke, and mirage. So these are the visions that happen in the mind as this process is reversing. Okay. Oof. Okay, sorry, that was, I know, faster than I would have liked, but nonetheless, this was our karma. We created the karma to have a class like this tonight. So what we're going to do now is in the last 10 or 15 minutes that we've got left, we're going to try to recreate or meditate on this dissolution process. Just to get a feel for, okay, what does it really feel like? And hopefully generate an aspiration to meditate on it more frequently so that we can really get this process in our mind. Yeah. Okay. So let's take our meditation posture. And let's take some cleansing deep breath. And we're going to bring up a situation where we are really dying. We know we're dying. We're not coming back from this. Picture the place, the circumstances, your surroundings. And as you're laying there, knowing that you're dying, you feel that your arms and legs begin to weaken. They are weak. Your body feels heavy, as if it was going to be falling right through the ground. Your eyes can't see very clearly. Your eyelids seem so heavy. You have difficulty opening and closing your eyes. And as you're experiencing this weak sensation of your body weakening, then you see a vision of a mirage. The vision of the mirage appears in your mind. And as you continue to lay there, you begin to feel dry. Your mouth is dry. Your eyes are dry. And you lose the ability to hear. You cannot hear your thoughts. You cannot hear anything outside, external either. And you experience a vision of smoke. So this vision of smoke arises in your mind. And as the elements continue to dissolve, you begin to feel cold. You have no desire for food or drink. You cannot perceive or distinguish anyone around you. You don't know their names. You've forgotten their names. You cannot distinguish colors. And your inhalation becomes weak, and your exhalation is long and pronounced. And you experience a vision of sparks or fireflies. Now you have no more breathing. Your heart has stopped. Your body cannot move. There is no consciousness of the external world. And you experience a vision of a weak flame that is about to go out. Now you've been declared clinically dead. Your conceptual minds have dissolved. And a subtler mind appears. And that mind observes a vacuity filled with white. So you experience a white appearance, as if everywhere around you is just white. That mind in turn gives way to a more subtle mind. And that subtle mind experiences a vision of red, as in a sunset, a bright sunset. And that mind dissolves and gives way to an even subtler mind. And that subtle mind experiences a deep black vision. And there is a sensation of fainting or swooning. And as that happens, the fundamental mind of clear light, the most subtle mind manifests. And you can imagine like dawn, a clear dawn, with the most clear light. And we're going to do the process in reverse. From that clear light, the mind now experiences a black vision. Everything is black. From that black vision, the mind now experiences a vision of red increase like a bright sunset. And from that, the mind then experiences a vision of white appearance, white everywhere. And as the mind becomes coarser, then there is a vision of a weak flame about to go out. And after that vision comes a vision of sparks or fireflies. And the mind is becoming even coarser. The elements are regenerating. After that, you experience a vision of smoke as the water element comes into play. And after that comes a vision of a mirage. And you have reincarnated. So take 3 deep breaths. Feel your body. Feel where you are seated. Reconnect with your breathing, your space, with this life. Okay, we have concluded this class. Give yourselves credit for hanging in there, for really facing this difficult topic, for doing the meditations. So I have really enjoyed having this time with all of you. Really enjoyed reviewing this material. And I hope that you will make a big difference in your life, on your path. May you be able to benefit all sentient beings. Good night. Oh, we have to dedicate. We have to dedicate. Minor detail. Minor detail. May whatever virtue I have collected benefit the teachings and all transmigratory beings, and in particular, may it cause the essence of perfect pure loss and darkness teachings to shine forever. May the precious Supreme Bodhicitta not yet born arise and grow. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. Okay. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Shenresi Tensei Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And we don't have to do this prayer because, in case you have not heard, Lama Zopa Rinpoche has reincarnated. It has been announced. It has been announced. So I am so delighted in Nepal. So hopefully soon we'll get more news on that reincarnation, but it's certainly something to rejoice about. And as I was doing the dedication prayers, it dawned on me, we never actually did the refuge prayer. It's like, where was my mind today? I was so wanting to get this material out that I just skipped right over the refuge. I'm sorry about that. I take full responsibility. Okay, I will see you hopefully on the road somewhere. Take care.
Thank you, Venerable.